wanted to go over a diagram of ourselves and getting an understanding of what's going on inside. We have an identity, kind of an eternal core thing that is us, or me, right? The me is this little identity thing. Not going to go into where it lives or exists, but this is the me part. And the key thing is that this me part is separate from this part, okay? So we have a mind, all right, and a brain, a physical brain and the mind in it. And we have all these senses and inputs, lots of inputs. I forgot, internal senses. And these external senses, all this input going in there, flowing through various reasonings, internal rewards, punishments, creating beliefs, feelings based on all this stuff going on inside this head. And so we have this identity that kind of lives in what I'm going to call a mental landscape. This is our box. This is the landscape. And landscapes in real world, this is an analogy. Analogies break down, and so I'm going to give some key concepts at the end of what I'm trying to say, but this is the landscape of where our identity walks and talks and interacts every day. So here's our identity right there, okay? Now, different people have very different mental landscapes. And there's two parts to a landscape over time. There's your climate, right? We have the tropics, really warm, on the earth, right? And then we have temperate zones, and then we have the Arctic, which is really cold all the time. And those are like all the time things. Climate is long term. It's going to always there. Then we have weather. Weather comes and goes, right? One day it might be sunny, one day it might be rainy. So inside our mental landscape, usually many people have it, your typical climate is a nice, very comfortable, sunny day, whatever's comfortable, right? Sunny day, you're just walking around, hanging out, very able to do whatever it is you need to do. Not a lot of interference. Now, even in really nice climate places, we still have weather. And so sometimes some thunderclouds roll in, and we kind of have a down day, or things aren't quite going well. But weather passes, right? Weather goes on through, and we're back, functioning okay, hanging out, doing our stuff. And things are generally good. Life's good. And even then, maybe they'll have some snow or rain, right? But again, just weather. It comes and goes, and that's okay. Life is kind of, you have ups and downs. But for the most part, the weather passes, and we're back to, life's pretty good, going on. We're doing just fine. Now, in other situations, it's not that way. There's actually the climate itself. It's not just some bad weather occasionally. The climate itself is something. For example, on Earth, right, deep into the Antarctic, it snows, every day or whatever. And maybe you have a constant downpour. Maybe you live in some monsoon place, a perpetual monsoon. It's there every single day, every single minute. And and the weather in such a climate it goes from worse to worser, and sometimes goes back to worse, and it's just wind, right, and eddies and things and whatever might be coming along, or maybe some people have a climate of just constant overcast, constant gloom, constant darkness. And that's just their climate. And, sometimes maybe they also get a little stuff going on, comes and goes, but it's this constant gloom. Different people have these different climates. What I'm trying to show here is that your identity is separate from your climate, from your landscape, from your weather. And that if you're in a hurricane, it's going to be really hard to function normally. You're going to be so focused on, I'm just trying to stand upright without falling over. It's really, really hard to get things done, to interact with the world and life, and it's really, really hard. Whereas in a nice kind of a pleasant climate, it's a whole lot easier to function. Life is much more enjoyable, much more productive, and much more able to do things. So in summary, the key concept I'm trying to get here is that our identity is separate from our mental climate weather, or mental landscape, as I'm calling it here. And mental climate and weather, there's different things, it's different. We have our day-to-day ups and downs, but we also have a climate. And one's identity lives in a mental landscape, right? The mental landscape is not our identity. Feelings, filter, senses, all this stuff. This is not our identity. Our identity is separate, and it lives in this landscape full of those things. People have very different mental climates and mental landscapes. And so understanding that in ourselves, and understanding that if we're living inside a hurricane, other people aren't necessarily living in a hurricane. Or maybe we're living in sunny skies, and we can kind of try to understand that, oh, look, that person's living inside a hurricane. That might be why they're struggling a little bit, or they're acting a little differently or whatever, because of what they're having to deal with inside. And then there are ways to affect the mental climate. Okay? So there are ways to clean up. We don't have weather control in real life and external on the earth, but we do have some ways to do climate, affect the weather control on our internal basis. And that can do a lot to increase our quality of life.